Hi, I'm Brent Feldman, and we're back with another episode of Mix and Matchbox. I am here today joined by Anthony Vizzari. He is the Chief Revenue Officer for Seventh Level. Hi, Anthony. How are you doing?
Brent, I'm excellent. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Just landed in New York. You can see the background behind me. So I'm ready to talk marketing and sales.
Definitely. That sounds awesome. And I think you win as far as best background that we've had on the podcast here. So definitely good positioning. That quite clutch. So yeah, definitely looking forward to jumping in here. And actually, you know what I must say, I don't know if it was me going to the website, after, like looking at you as a guest, but I've definitely gotten a lot of Jeremy Miner's, stuff. And I know that we're going to talk through a whole bunch of stuff today, but I know that you guys have been, going hard on social media. Seems like it's paying off really well. But yeah, I have lots of questions, so can't wait to jump in here.
Yeah, awesome. Once we get you on the pixel, Brent, there's really no escaping from it. So
good to know. For the rest of my life, I'll be seeing Jeremy Miner. But I guess I'll start off here, pretty straightforward, but Seventh Level is a company that I've definitely become aware of through sort of retargeting, and Jeremy Miner is the one who's doing all these social media videos that seem to have a lot of buzz kind of associated with them. They're hard hitting, they're impactful, but they're good. They seem to be targeted very well at those issues that salespeople run into a lot. How would you say that the social media campaigns have impacted the growth of Seventh Level?
Yeah, I feel significantly as far as the awareness side of it. So we're in a space where we're coming in from the old model of selling, and Seventh Level, our mission is to change the way sales is perceived. So we're coming in with a new approach that works with human behavior rather than working against human behavior. So when you're coming into a market that's been around for hundreds of years, and the way people have sold have been kind of set in stone, you've got the old school kind of sales gurus, we call them. When we're coming in trying to shift that, there's a lot of, I guess, brand perceptions and buyer behavior that we're trying to change. It's not an easy thing to do, as you're aware, because you're in the marketing space, and we know what you guys are doing over there, which is great. So I would say it was shifting the perception that there is a new way out there when a lot of people are ingrained with the old way. It had to be done via marketing and brand awareness to be able to get the message out there that, hey, maybe there's a better way to sell where you don't have to trigger sales resistance.
Definitely. That's cool. You're really, yeah, it definitely seems like you're kind of changing the game. And I guess, what would you say, what do you kind of think about the ads approach that makes people want to use the NEPQ method? Because there's definitely tactics that are used in those videos and stuff, but what do you think is attractive about the method itself?
It's a really interesting question, and I would have to draw myself back to when I was a sales rep, full-time selling, and I first got exposed to Seventh Level and NEPQ, which is the new model of selling. The thing for me was it's essentially a pattern interrupt, because you're exposed to so much content, and there's a lot of training out there that was typically all the same, like saying the same stuff, like the buy or die, like choke them by the tie, like sell or be sold type sales methodologies. And then when you're exposed to a video which talks about using neutral language, it's like neutral language. It's just like, what does that even mean? And then once you start listening to the content and it starts pulling you in, you're asking yourself the question on the other end, like, why is this new method that I've never heard before, which sounds like someone's kind of pushing me away and not selling me, why is that actually pulling me in? So it has the opposite effect of a lot of those kind of old school gurus out there that are just kind of, enthusiastic, showing up, like pushing their solution down your throat. And I think that's what really stands out when a sales rep jumps on and they hear a piece of content. I think it just really interrupts their brain. Like, well, why am I listening to this? Why is this making so much sense?
Definitely. It's very different, the approach. It actually, what's funny, it kind of reminds me of kind of like a dating thing where, if you show like you're too interested, obviously it's kind of like, oh gosh, that's too much. And I feel like it's very easy for salespeople to really smother their prospects. And I like the fact that it's kind of guiding away from that. But NEPQ, I guess, has a basis in an understanding of human behavior. And the first thing that it made me think of was NLP. And so, neuro linguistic programming. And a friend had told me about this like years and years ago. And some of it is as simple as like, body mirroring and, a lot of concepts that you kind of hear over and over. But are there any other psychological principles, approaches, or factors that shape how NEPQ was created?
Yeah. So NLP is, essentially about behavioral change, right? Which is rooted from like therapy, which was created many, many years ago by some of the best, like the Ericksons and all of that. We would say there's about 10% similarities with NEPQ. Like with NLP, I believe there are about 5 techniques, which include, as you mentioned, mirroring, number one, active listening, embedded commands, and you got anchoring, like emotional anchoring and reframing. So whilst there's certain elements of NLP, the way we look at it, right, is, for example, the embedded commands. This is how I used to, use sales, or I was learning sales, and it was like, get someone to say yes 5 times in a row and they'll say yes at the end. Or when you're in presentation mode, as long as you say something along the lines of, so Brent, by now you would see that this could actually help you. And if you say the words buy now, they're going to buy now at the end of the call. So that's the part that, from a therapy perspective, potentially, but when it comes to sales goes a lot deeper, right? You can't just have a discussion in a boardroom with a director or a CEO and say the words buy now. You should see that our solution can definitely help your business, and they're going to say buy now. Like they're not going to say that. So I'm sure there's some elements of there, like the mirroring, the reframing, but where we go deeper is the advanced questioning, because you can have those 5 techniques, but if you're not asking the right questions at the right time, or if you're not using the right tonality, and if you're not helping someone actually understand what their problems are or how bad their problems are, because most of our prospects don't actually know how deep their problems are until you start what we call peeling back the onion. If you don't actually have those advanced questioning abilities, then you can use all of the NLP tactics in the world, but are you really able to change someone's perspective? Well, we don't feel that that's going to be the case 100% of the time.
Cool. Awesome. So I guess when talking about sales, like, large dollar figures are always cited as the mark of success. And this could be comprised of like, whales as well as little fish. Do you think that there's a good mix of what people should be chasing, or focusing on one or the other? And I mean, this is kind of a loaded question. It's maybe your just general feeling, but after seeing not only sales for your own, organization, dealing with other salespeople, that are out there in the world actively trying to, grow their businesses, do you have any advice?
Yeah, and I like the question. I like loaded questions, Brent. So keep them coming. I'd say I see it from a different perspective. Rather than looking at dollar figures at all, I'd rather focus on impact being made. So whether you're a business owner, you're a CEO, you're a VP of sales, whether you're a sales rep, rather than just focusing on how much money am I making, I personally believe, and we believe as a company, that doesn't put you in the right state of mind to be out there focusing on the intent. Because when you're on a sales call, the prospect is going to perceive your intent 1 or 2 different ways, which will lead to 2 different outcomes. They're either going to perceive your intent as you're there to sell them, and you're there to take something from them, or you're there to make a gain from them, or they're going to perceive your intent as being there to actually help them. Now, if they're perceiving your intent is to take something from them and to sell them. And many of the sales trainers out there, that's how they view sales. It's adversarial. It's like you against the prospect. Like you're trying to win them over so you can make money. So if that's your North Star, then you're never going to be in a state of mind where I'm there to help them. So I'd rather salespeople actually focus on what problem are you actually trying to solve? All right. So what problem does the prospect have? Does your solution actually help them solve that problem? And then from there, how do we actually get the prospect to see in their mind that it is far less riskier them moving forward with your product and or service rather than just staying the same, status quo, nothing changes, and their problem, gets a lot worse. So that's what I'd rather salespeople focus on. Like, what impact are you actually making as a metric of success? The rest will follow.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So this isn't on the list here, but I have to ask a follow on to that. Is that, do you have any challenges uphill trying to get managers to subscribe to that same, theory, or sales directors? Let's say that you get everybody on board who's actually out in the field selling, but the manager, the director, the VP of sales is looking at a bottom line figure. Is it hard for them to trust in that same sort of methodology?
So here's the thing, right? Human beings, they make decisions based on emotion and they justify with logic. So whilst the manager might be on and the VP of sales or the CEO, they might be looking at the bottom line figure. It's not just the bottom line figure. It goes a lot deeper than that. There's a lot of salespeople that will get on and they'll say things like the old school method, like, so tell me, what are the 2 biggest problems that keep you up at night, Brent? So tell me, like, how much is your business losing right now in revenue every single month because you don't have this? They're going straight to the logic. If you don't tap into the emotion, you're not able to get them to really internalize like what the problem is, what impact that problem is having on the business, and maybe what's that doing to them, or how's that impacting them. For the manager, it might be them not hitting that bottom line. Well, what impact does that have on the business? And what impact does that have on their professional career? So I need to go deeper. I can't just get on a meeting and look at the logic, because we know, and brain studies and behavioral science shows that it's the emotion that gets people to actually act and move forward with something.
Absolutely. So when growing a team of people to help spread methodologies that, are used to create success, what are important, criteria for people that you like to bring on board to the organization? You're growing a team to help sell, selling. So this honestly is like, you're hiring salespeople theoretically all the time, but they're selling an idea, and I mean, like that could apply to a ton of different companies, but it's very interesting. But are you looking at your own sales talent differently than other people look at sales talent? That's a tough,
Yeah.
that's a real dense one.
That's a really good question, Brent. And the answer is, I don't know what everybody else out there is looking at in terms of their own sales team. However, I do know there's a lot of businesses out there and a lot of business owners out there that are just hiring everybody, throwing them up against a wall, putting a KPI in the middle, and then hoping a couple of people stick by the end of it. Now, we are in a unique, I guess, position, because we train salespeople in our own methodology, which is NEPQ, which stands for Neuro Emotional Persuasion Questioning, which is what works with human behavior. So we have access to a lot of the people that we actually train that know our methodology. A lot of them end up coming to us saying, hey, this worked for me. These are the results I got. I really want to be able to change other people in the industry. So what I look for is, number one, you have to be passionate about sales. You have to be passionate about sales. And the passion comes from the ability and the desire to help other people, because that's what sales is. Sales really is change. We're changing somebody or something. We're changing someone's current state to their future state, their objective state, as we call it. And our solution in the middle is what the change is. So you have to be passionate. You have to have work ethic, because sales, it's not easy, right? You have to be willing to get in the trenches, make the activity to create the output. The beautiful thing about sales is, and this is told to me, many years ago from a mentor, is sales is a meritocracy, because the better you are, the more money you will make. So that's the upside, but you have to be willing to put in the work. So you have to be passionate about sales. You have to be putting in the work ethic. I also look for prior success, because we're training sales reps and businesses to become the top 1%. Now, unlike many other businesses, people get on the call with us, Brent, and they will purposely give my team objections to see how we handle it using NEPQ. So I need someone that understands NEPQ, they believe in it, they're passionate about sales, but they've also had prior success because they know what it takes to become a top 1%. Like, much like with what you're offering, you guys are amazing at marketing. So when a business comes on the line with you, the conviction in your voice on what they need to do will stem from, hey, I've been there, I've done that, I know what it takes. That's the same thing I'm looking for with my reps. And then the final thing, I would say the final main point is I'm looking for long term. There's the industry is going through a bit of a shift right now, where it's been for the past few years what we call offer hopping, where you're on one account, it's going well, the marketing's great, you're making a bit of money, and then all of a sudden maybe the marketing tanks, or maybe the business scaled without a plan, so they brought on all these reps, and now there's not enough leads for everybody. Or maybe the business was a quick cash grab and it was never built for long-term sustainability. What I'm looking for is I'm looking to take sales reps from what I call offer hoppers to career builders, where I want them to see a pathway over the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 plus years. Like Inc. 5000 has rated us the past 2 years as the fastest growing sales training organization in the US. We don't want that to be the fastest growing and then it just tanked. We want to be around for the next 100 plus years. So I would say those would be the main points. And as long as I can find someone, I can train them on the skills, right? I just need to know that they're in it for the long game and they're really passionate about helping people.
Cool. Actually, that's a really good lead in to the next question, which is, why is ethical selling important to you? I feel like on the surface, it's it should be pretty, everybody should be, ethical as they approach, the sales as a discipline, just to be a decent human being. But, I've asked this question before to another sales leader, and I'm interested in how you would, frame the answer here.
Yeah, it's massive. It's massive for me. And this is to the core of our entire organization is the ethical side of selling. Now, the unfortunate thing is with this skill, it can be powerful. It can be used for good, but it can also be used for bad. Now, there are a lot of salespeople out there that are using it for bad, and they're manipulative. Now, the unfortunate thing with that is if your goal, remember what I said like 5 minutes ago, is to help people, if you're not actually delivering on the helping people part and you are just focusing on how much whales I'm getting or how much money I'm making, that's when it can go spiral downhill really quickly. And I remember, this kind of brings me back a bit. I'm glad you asked the question. I was at university and I studied business marketing and business management. I think you did a minor in business management, I read as well. And I remember I was doing my final presentation, and we had to stand up in front of the entire cohort and deliver this presentation on how you would market I think it was like a car manufacturing business. And I remember we get to the end of that, and my professor stands up and said to me, "Anthony, you could sell ice to an Eskimo." And she said, I could be butchering this, but she said something along the lines of, "I hope you have a strong moral compass, because this could be used for good or bad one day." And the moral compass part really stuck with me. So I've finished my marketing degree. I then land in sales within like 2 weeks of getting a marketing job. I'm on the phones. So that really stuck with me, because if you lose the moral compass, personally, how could you sleep at night knowing that you're taking things from people and not actually delivering a service? And furthermore than that, if you're selling something that isn't actually helping people, and you're not delivering on that, then you got to think the other person on the other side, they're buying into something and a power that you have for the wrong reasons. That business isn't going to be around for long.
Mm-hmm.
Career isn't going to be around for long, and eventually it's going to catch up to you. So if you're in sales for the wrong reason, you shouldn't be in sales. You have to have the strong moral compass, but you have to be selling something you actually believe in. Otherwise, you would struggle regardless. Because the biggest thing for me that I learned was you have to have conviction and confidence in what you're selling. Doesn't matter what skills you have, right? If you are confident and you are speaking with conviction, that will be enough for some people. Now, it's not going to make you the sales that you want to make because there's advanced questioning, tonality that come in play, but the conviction gets transferred to the other person and they will feel that you actually believe in what you're selling. So it's huge.
Cool. Awesome. I guess what would you say are the common, like pitfalls when people don't use NEPQ selling, and maybe are there any pitfalls if they do? My guess would be that would be if they do improperly, or if if they're employing it improperly. But yeah, where are those common mistakes? And I know you've already kind of covered some, which is like, yeah, not believing in it, jumping right to the solution. Yeah, there's some that you have covered, but are there any other pitfalls you feel like are important?
Yeah, I think that there are many, right? There are many pitfalls in any way you look at it, right? The way we see it, there's three forms of persuasion, Brent. So if I said the words to you, boiler room selling, like what comes to mind for you, for example?
Of like grilling the prospect and just hey, come on, sign on the dotted line. What's going to get us down to a yes today?
It's the Wolf of Wall Street style, right? Like, I've got a great opportunity for you, like, Visa, Amex, or MasterCard, like the whole like old school method. Now, according to the data, we are the least persuasive as human beings when we actually tell people things. So if I posture you, if I tell you something, or if I'm trying to dominate you in a sales interaction or on a call, I'm the least persuasive according to behavioral science. And if you think about it, I believe you may have kids, right, Brent? You got a couple of kids. If you if you tell your kids to do something, or you tell your spouse to do something, how are they going to respond? They're going to push back. They're going to resist because nobody likes being told what to do. So it's the least persuasive way to sell. So people that are selling where they might get on a sales conversation and you're speaking to C-level executives, pull up the fancy slide deck, probably know what I'm talking about, and you got the pics of the founders, the awards we've won, we've got the best this, we've got the best that, we've been rated the #1 company for the past 10 years. It's like, how many people tell you when you're on a sales call that they have the best service and they got the best product? All of them. Nobody will get on a sales call and say, so just so you're aware, Brent, we're the 5th best in the market right now. Like, nobody's saying that. So the pitfall is, if you sound like everybody else because you're saying the exact same things that everybody else is saying and you're telling people things, you're just creating what we call sales resistance. Like, psychologically, from the very start of the call, your prospects, they trust you less. Like, when you say things like that. Even another example, another pitfall, talking down competitors. You might get on a call and they say, oh yeah, we've looked at XYZ. It might be a competitor. What do most salespeople do? Talk down the competitors. Yeah, they're not really good at this. Oh, I'm surprised you even spoke to them. They're like the 5th best in the market. It's like trigger salesperson, where we'd train someone to say something along the lines of, oh yeah, I hear they're fairly decent. I guess what caused you not to go with them? So what am I doing? I'm not talking down the competitors, and in the prospect's mind, I'm leaning out. It forces them to lean in, but it gives them the opportunity to tell me, like, yeah, oh, so you've spoken to so and so. Yeah, I hear they're a fairly decent company. I guess what prevented you from going with those? I hear they get fairly decent results. Yeah. So I'm not talking down the competitors. So it's more so ditching the pitch. A lot of people are just jumping on, pushing the solution down the throat. Nobody cares about us. They don't care about me. They don't care about my story. Who do they care about? They care about the problem they have, the solution that they're looking for, and what that gap looks like to help bridge it.
Absolutely. You know, and it's interesting. There's a little bit of subtext in, you know, what you had, you know, kind of mentioned about that too, which is the learning aspect. And, you know, the more you're talking, the less you're learning is like, you know, the way that, you know, I feel about it. And the clients, you know, even if they aren't going to be your customer at the end of the day, they can teach you a lot. And, you know, and one of those things that you just mentioned, that if you let them answer that question for you about why didn't you choose them? Like, you know, what was your reasoning? You're not telling them why you feel they are either a good or a bad fit and therefore triggering that thing in their mind, but you're offering a chance for them to tell you exactly what they maybe liked or didn't like about them. So I feel like there's that, you know, there's so much to be gained out of that approach.
Yeah. And then I guess that, you know, off what you said ties into there was a second era of sales, which was the consultative method or the consultative model of selling, right? It came out in like the 80s from like Sam Institute and spin selling. I think a lot of people have heard of that. And that was revolutionary compared to like the boiler room, buy or die type era. And that was focused a lot on logical based questioning or selling, which we touched on a bit earlier. But when you ask the prospect logical based questions, what are they going to give us? Logical based responses. But they do buy on emotion, not on logic. They justify with logic, and brain studies prove that. So when you say questions like, you know, who besides you will be involved in the decision right at the start of a call? Or like, what are the two problems that if we can help you solve right now would make the most difference to your business? Like, we would relanguage that. We would say something along the lines of, so Brent, can you walk me through your company's decision-making process when it comes to solving problems for your marketing so that you could attract higher quality leads? Rather than, so who makes the decisions in the business? So I'm getting them to open up more, but I'm using more neutral language. So we like to relanguage the questions to get them to open up and create more engagement. Because if I can get the prospect engaged throughout the conversation and not just me asking all the questions and doing all the talking and them giving me one-word answers, then they can actually start to tell me what their problems are. But more importantly, what we're trying to get them to do is tell themselves.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to tell them, it's the least persuasive. If I can get someone to tell themselves what their problems are and what they're looking for and what difference that will make, then that's the most persuasive form of selling. Getting someone to persuade themselves into it, and you're just there to facilitate the conversation.
Absolutely. Cool. Okay. So how about where do you know your team members end up spending the most time with sales reps at organizations? You know, your team that's like helping you know, other sort of you know, sales reps at the companies you're assisting on its goals and targets. Is it, you know, the leads pipeline? Is it the funnels? Or is it really literally just down to tactics on, you know, and relanguaging things and helping them see how to create better conversations? Where are you guys spending that kind of time with organizations?
Yeah, we call it the engagement phase, right? So traditional selling would say that 80% of the sale is made in what they call the closing, like the presenting and closing the deal. 80% of the sale is made. Just get on with your slide deck, make the offer, and then handle the objections, and then just handle the questions that are getting fired at you until you close the deal and sign the agreement. We would flip that. We would say 80% of the sale is made in the engagement phase, which we have a set of phases, and we would say, you know, the engagement phase would look at the situation questions, would look at problem awareness, finding out what their real problem actually is. And the problem typically is deeper than they even thought it was when they jumped on the call with you. Because most of your prospects, you would know this, Brent, they come on the call, they think their problem is one thing. Maybe it's, I don't have enough awareness on my Facebook account. But then when you pop the bonnet and you look under the hood, I mean, that's just a symptom of a larger problem. So then we take them through problem awareness. We then take them to solution awareness. What does their ideal solution actually look like? And what difference would it make tangibly when we help them achieve that solution? And then on an emotional level, what difference would it make to them personally if they're able to achieve the said solution? And this, once again, is something they probably didn't even think about. Now, once we go through there, we then take them to consequence questions. We have to get the prospect to really realize what are the consequences of them not changing, because that's where I'm getting them to realize that it's far more risky for you to stay the same than to actually change. So the engagement phase is really finding out more about the prospect rather than the closing. So we'd say only around 8 to 10% should be focused on the actual presenting and the closing, where the sale has to be made on the upstream. We call it the upstream. You know, we train a company called OC Tanner. They came in and they build like culture. So like they'll only take on clients if they have at least, I think, around 10,000 employees, and they don't really do small stuff. You know, and we train a lot of medical device companies as well, pharmaceuticals. It's really about how to shorten the sales cycle, understand how to get other decision makers on the line, not focusing so much on, hey, here's a 3-hour presentation of me trying to stuff my solution down the throat. So someone books a call with us, whether it's a business, whether it's a sales rep, we just get them to really realize, like, hey, what are the problems here? Because the problem they think they have is, hey, I'm terrible at objection handling, Anthony. Well, really? Is it objection handling? What about what you're either saying and or not asking, or the tonality you're using from the first 7 seconds of your conversation that is causing that prospect to not even trust you from the moment you open your mouth? So we do this all the time. I train our inner circle members, and I break down their calls once a week in our advanced inner circle. They'll come on, they say, Anthony, I got this call recording. Minute 47, I got the think about it objection. How do I respond to it? I'd say, fantastic. Play me the first 4 seconds of your call. Why don't we start there? I don't even care. You've lost the sale. By the time the objection came up, you've already lost the sale, because the prospect is not trusting you. And if they give you a smokescreen objection, they're also lying to you. So you haven't had a truthful conversation for 40 minutes. You can't then all of a sudden get the truth out of them. I mean, there's ways to do it. We teach how to handle objections, but it's a much larger problem which comes from the top of the call.
Definitely. If you get that trust up front, it'll change the tone and tenor and pace the conversation.
Yeah.
Great. Well, what, let's say that you get out NEPQ selling to every single sales rep out there. Everybody under the sun is now a believer. Is there anything left to learn past this, sort of methodology? And really, what is that? Is this the hilt of, once you learn all these tactics, that you're done, good to go, or is there anything that you feel like still would benefit salespeople to continue learning from?
I really love that question, because we just ran a meetup for our clients about 2 weeks ago in Scottsdale, Arizona. And one of our clients actually asked me that question when I was up on stage emceeing. And the question was, like, what happens if everybody learns NEPQ? Like, what's next? Does that mean, we're all out of jobs? And the response I gave would be the same response I'm going to give to you, Brent, is there's always going to be different levels. Right? There's different levels to every game. Every sports game, every athlete, every professional out there, there's different levels. Now, we like to say something which we strongly believe is selling something that you did, or is selling something that you do? Is training something you did, or is training something you do? Is learning something you did, or is learning something you do? Like, which one is it? Because if it's something that you did, well, that could be trouble for you, because you've learned something once, you've trained on something once, and you didn't further your education. It's much like someone coming, for marketing, is getting your website reviewed something you do once and never again because it's optimized and it's perfect, or is it something you have to do on a continual basis to keep up with the algorithm changes? So whilst there's levels out there, it's really important to know that it's constantly changing. For example, when I went through Inner Circle, or when I went through NEPQ, let's say nearly 4 years ago now, and I look at what we teach now, it's completely different. Like, Jeremy will go through probably once a year to every 6 months, he'll reshoot the brand new content in the portal. because buyers change, buyer behavior changes. The way people buy are going to continue to change. You're going to have to keep learning. The issue is going to be if someone doesn't keep up with it, then they're going to fall behind, because there's more to the game. It's not just, there's a lot of people out there that say, oh, I've got the script, I've got the questions, but it's not working. I can give a team of 10 the exact same script, the exact same price points. They're selling the exact same thing. How are some people up here and then some people are down here? Because it's not just the words they're saying. There's more to it. There's the tonality. Like, do I say something in more of a curious tone, or maybe a challenging tone, or maybe even a skeptical tone to get them to pull me in? What about the verbal pausing or the verbal pacing, or maybe the way I'm asking questions that get them to internalize what I'm saying? So really, it's, if you just don't keep learning and you just think that, hey, I'm just going to learn something once and never again, then yes, you will get left behind and potentially, suffer your sales. But if you just keep up with it and you keep learning, there's different levels, and your aim is to strive. Like Jeremy named 7th level for a reason, right? Maybe he can share it one day. He doesn't talk too much about it, but 7th level is made for a reason. If you understand that there's different levels, then you will always keep learning.
Cool. Good. That's good advice for darn near anybody. Yeah, and the pro athletes in this world, it took a lot of training, everything else to get them to where they're at. Yeah, they didn't stop at being an average college basketball player. You got to keep going. All right, last one, pretty straightforward, easy one, but maybe you have a real good nugget for everybody out there. But what's the best sales advice that you've ever been given by a mentor?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Brent. There's been quite a few over my years of being on the phones all the way up to management, leading teams, and then working with like 7, 8, even up to 9-figure businesses and helping them with their sales processes. I think that the biggest sales lesson I learned very earlier on is believe in yourself, right? Believe in yourself, because if you believe in your ability to actually do the things that you're trying to do, and you genuinely believe that you're making a difference, then you can go out there in the world, and doesn't matter what you're doing, whether it's selling, whether it's, you're a teacher, maybe you're a business owner, or you're trying to start a business, or maybe you're working for the local government. As long as you believe in yourself, you're setting yourself up for success to actually succeed. And then when it comes to sales specifically, it's, if you don't believe in yourself, then how can you possibly help your prospect believe in themselves? That whatever you're selling, whether it be a product or whether it be a service, how can you possibly help them believe that they're going to be able to achieve what they want, whatever their goals are or their ambitions are, if you don't believe in your own? So everything starts internally before you try to, start displaying that externally. And then the second one I would say is your certainty, right? You have to be certain, because I learned this from a sales trainer very earlier on, is you can only give out, right, what you have on the inside. So number one is belief, but also certainty, and the conviction falls into it as well. Like if I'm not certain, if I don't have conviction, I tell my reps this all the time. When someone jumps on a sales call with you, they're lacking the thing that you offer. Okay, they're lacking certainty, they're lacking clarity, they're lacking confidence, they're lacking conviction. Whatever it is you're selling, because selling is just helping someone achieve, solve a problem and or an emotional need. That's all it is. They may either have a problem or an emotional need. Problem is they're not generating enough leads. Someone says, "Oh yeah, but I'm selling luxury cars. What problem am I selling?" It's an emotional need. Maybe when they were younger, somebody told them that you're never going to amount to anything in your lifetime. So they're buying that luxury vehicle, that Lamborghini, that Ferrari, as a way to fill that need, saying, "Hey, I made it. I am successful." Right? That's an emotional need. But you're not able to transfer that over to somebody if you just don't have it inside of you. So just believe in yourself. Believe in the product. And then other people will, not just believe in you, but there's a higher likelihood when you ask the right questions, and then when you use the right tonality, and then when you can get them to realize that them staying the same isn't going to be best for them, the belief will come out in your tone. That's what someone will like pull into at the end of your call, rather than, I need to think about it. I need to run this by the board. Now's not the right time. Those are just objections that you didn't solve upstream in the conversation. So handle those upstream, but start with yourself.
That's great. Yeah. And hey, how are you going to help anybody else if you don't believe in yourself? If you don't have that conviction. I that's wonderful advice. It's so simple, so straightforward. But I've read a lot of things that really that are kind of studies of salespeople, and if that conviction about the product, about what everybody is selling, it seriously, the rest erodes and it all goes away, and it's really hard to get things done. So great, straightforward, simple advice.
One more to add to that as well, because now you got me thinking, is I remember someone once telling me that the objection you get is the objection you give, right? This was an important lesson very early on as a sales rep, because if you're a sales rep and every time you go to make some sort of buying decision, if you're always giving the I need to think about it objection, right? And you've never overcome that. Let's say the product was there to help you, and the sales process was done the right way, hopefully using a newer methodology, and you keep giving the think about it objection, then you don't know what it's like on the other side. You don't know what it's like to overcome being uncomfortable, because when you're selling, regardless of what you're selling, you're getting someone outside their comfort zone, which is not an easy thing to do. The human brain is wired to keep us restricted within our comfort zone. That's why most people will sit in pain for years and years and never do anything about it, because it's the fear of change is really scary to them. So if you keep giving the objection that you're trying to help overcome, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to overcome that, because you can't relate with the prospect. If I can't relate with a prospect and show them that I've been in their shoes and I understand them, then they're not going to buy into me. But if I've done that, if I've been on the edge and I say, hey, I know what it's like because I've been exactly where you're at, and I know it's scary, and that is totally normal. But can I share a perspective on what I did to help overcome that? Like, if I can have a real, authentic, genuine, you can't fake that. If I can have a genuine, authentic conversation with someone because I overcame my own objections, well, they're more likely to come along with it, because now they can trust you more because you've been there and you've done that.
Yeah. Do you think you're trying at the end of the day to help people be more empathetic, better people? I say that in earnest, because a lot of these things, it's like, if you can have good, honest conversations with people and dig to the root of people's problem and understand them and they understand you, like you get down to just, hey, we all want to be people and happy and understand each other.
It's really what it comes down to. It's connection. Like, my first sales mentor told me, be interested in the prospect. Get off your script. Don't just ask a question, wait for a response on to the next, because you don't actually care about them. And they can feel it. If you're interested in them and you're curious, and this is displayed in the questions you ask and the way you're asking the questions in your tonality, it will teach people how to use a curious tone to get that. If you're interested in them, they want to be heard. They want to be listened to. They don't want to feel like they're being part of a process. You're a scripted robot because you sound like you're reading a script, because most salespeople are. That's the stuff that turns people off. So to answer your question, 100%. Be a human being, be empathetical, and actually be there to help the person, which is what we're there to do. That's our job.
Awesome. Well, that's cool. Well, it's a great way to end on that last question. I really appreciate it. And, and being on the podcast, I was looking forward to asking all these questions, and, yeah, thanks for your great answers. So, yeah, is there anything else you'd like to put out there? We can always put links in the description. Anything else that you want to say there?
Yeah, we've got a Facebook group. If some of your audience, maybe they're running a business and you're doing your job, which is amazing, which is helping them generate leads, and maybe they're saying, all right, now how can I get better at sales? They can join our free Facebook group. It's salesrevolution.pro. We've got a little over 100,000 salespeople in there right now. We've got a black book of questions as well that has a few of the questions that we help business owners with, and sales reps and individuals and CEOs with. So if they jump in there, say they came from the podcast, and say, send me the black book of questions, I'll get someone from the team to send it to them. And we've also got a book, The New Model of Selling, that was co-authored by Jerry Acuff. So that's Jeremy Miner and Jerry Acuff. new model of selling, how to sell to an unsellable generation. And they can find that at Barnes and Noble and all the I guess the online bookstores. And yeah, new model of selling. And I would say that's a good place to start.
Awesome. Well, that's wonderful. Again, Anthony, thank you so much for being with us today.
Excellent, Brent. Really enjoyed it, and I hope your audience got a bit out of it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Definitely. I am your host, Brent Feldman. This has been another episode of Mix and Matchbox. We will be back soon with more content. Please like and subscribe. Thank you.